Good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m. on Tuesday, June 30th. This is the special evening meeting of the City of Topeka's Public Health and Safety Committee for input about rental issues. So we'll see if we can't get started right off the bat and move through. We've got some early updates from the work of the Changing Our Culture of Property Maintenance, and then some presentations from people who presented some comments in advance of this meeting, and then we will open it for questions and comments and discussion. I'm going to try and be pretty flexible about how long people talk or whether they can ask questions in the course of their presentation, as long as we can keep it moving. This is intended to be an open public input session. So with that, let's call the meeting to order, and I would ask my fellow committee members to introduce themselves.
Michelle Bradbury, District 7.
Marcus Miller, District 6.
Christina Valdivia Alcala, District 2.
And I'm Karen Hiller from District 1 and the chair of this committee. Are you able to get the PowerPoint up, Dan?
I am working on it.
Okay. Having a little technical difficulty, but hopefully it won't last. Oh, 5 minutes? Okay, never mind. Go ahead. We will just get started. What is at the head of that PowerPoint is simply a review. For those of you who have printed the handouts, just a review that when we're working on property maintenance codes, which has been the big agenda for this year for Public Health and Safety Committee, we're trying to protect public health and safety. We're trying to preserve neighborhood stability, support fairness and accountability, provide clear, legally defensible standards, and encourage investment and redevelopment. In terms of the goals of the Changing Our Culture of Property Maintenance Initiative, overall, in kind of plain language, the idea is to help people to help themselves and each other, minimizing the need for city intervention at all. Obviously, there's a lot of arms and legs and fingers and toes to that, but the idea is to not need the city to be intervening all the time and at great length. Some more specific goals that were there were to, oh, you got it, next one, to reduce the number of substandard structures by 50% within 5 years. That's now. Frankly, we've just still been building that plane in the air, and so we haven't even gotten to the point where we're inspecting 100% of the structures to see how those ratios would work. And that's an example. This has been an emotional issue for a lot of people. That is simply a fact. It's not pointing fingers at anybody. It's just a fact. And hopefully we can address all the issues that way. We want to reduce deterioration in vacant structures. Tonight we're talking about rental housing, but we talk about vacant structures, homeowner structures, what's happening on the outside of people's properties, the trash or the weeds and vegetation and things like that. We want to reduce the revenue expense gap on abatement cases by at least 50%. We're doing a lot of work, charging a lot of money, and not getting it all paid back, so taxpayers are having to carry that. And then approve the appearance of the community through management of uncultivated and overgrown vegetation, such that the average visitor would rate Topeka's property appearance at least a 7 on a scale of 10. So just a quick overview. Those are fundamentals behind code enforcement and the Changing Our Culture of Property Maintenance initiative. With that, again, we want to focus on making that system work. I think everyone here, again, I'm sensitive to the fact that this has been a pretty emotional issue for a lot of people, and people have put a lot of work into it as well. So I just want to encourage everybody as we give the reports and talk through these issues to keep focused if we can. The fact that we are all here to collaborate and do the best that we can for the city. As far as I've learned along this whole way, we all have the same goals. And so the idea is, how do we get there in the best way possible? With that, item 2A, our first update from
Chair.
staff and, oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to say one thing before we get started. Thank
Sure.
you for the opportunity to talk. I know a lot of this has been going on for a long time. The change in our culture of property maintenance had a 5-year window of trying to get so much figured out and actually executed, and we still have a ways to go. I also think, though, it has come to the point where we need to be careful that we don't ultimately end up doing a death by analysis, which is commonly called analysis paralysis. That is a state of overthinking a situation to the point where forward motion or decision-making becomes paralyzed. It stems from the false belief that the more information will bring certainty, leading to chronic inaction, stressed, and missed deadlines. I'm not saying that about this as a whole, because staff and people on this committee have done really hard work and have pushed things forward, things that will need to be tweaked along the way, obviously. But I just want to make sure that we are cognizant of that, because we know for a lot of this, ultimately, we have to look at an end point. So thank you for that, Chair.
Thank you. Travis Lathrope, our GIS wonder guy. You could probably give a more accurate title for you, but anyway. It's going to talk about our rental map, including final counts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. Again, my name is Travis Lathrop, and I am the GIS Manager for the City of Topeka. We're responsible for mapping all the GIS or city-owned assets. And I'm here tonight to talk about the rental registry program and how it may be supported by the GIS Department. I think what we'll start with is talking a little bit about the Phase 1 map, how the data behind it was sourced. Then we'll transition a little bit into if this registry is implemented, what this map might look like moving forward as we transition over to a web-based platform. To begin with, what we're looking at on this map is what we're calling the Phase 1 registry properties. As part of the GIS Department's weekly deliverables, we get an updated parcel data set from the county. In that data set, it includes how those parcels are being used using a land use function code. After having conversations with the planning department and the code department, we identified that we were interested in targeting rental properties where they have a unit value of 5 or more, right? So we don't want any single units or a couple of units. We want 5 or more. The data from the county is not provided to allow us to tell that answer quickly. We've got to do some individual looking at every individual parcel on the appraiser's website. So what I did was I took the list of parcels that we deemed multifamily units and provided that list of parcels to John Jardine's team. They were then took each of those parcel IDs and went into the assessor's website, because on the assessor's website there is the unit count for each of those parcels, because it's not included in the data that we get from the county. So we've got to do some additional analysis to give you that actual count. So what we arrived upon and what makes up this map is approximately 300 parcels, of which there are over 12,000 rental units in those 300 parcels. If this registry is enacted, this map would transition over to a web-based environment where it's going to have some symbology changes and it'll look a little bit different. But going forward, the vision would be we would have a map that's hosted that would indicate the registry status of a parcel. And again, these are only going to be parcels with 5 units or more. The map would be symbolized based on the registry status values in a red, yellow, and green symbology pattern. Offenders would be the red, a good status would be the green, so on and so forth. One of the things that we talked about as we were having conversations about this registry was the data uploads. I think one of the components of the registry is if I have a parcel of land that's in a bad status, and it's showing up red on the map, if I were to sell that property to somebody, that parcel would instantly change the category and the status, and it would no longer be red. It would change to green. It would basically reset. We're getting parcel data weekly from the county, and if property changes are happen every time we get a new data stream, we've got to go in there and do the analysis to find where those changes occurred. Are they in 5 unit or more dwellings? Yes. Then we need to check the registry and see if the changes need to occur. Haven't built that out yet because it's be time intensive to actually build the infrastructure, model the workflow, get some dummy data and model it. But that's kind of the vision going forward. The map would live on the registry website, which would have information about the actual registry. We would have this map, hyperlinks coming off that page to actual apply for your registry and do all the back-end things that you would need to do. It would probably live all on that one page. The map would be updated nightly. We would just need to work through all of the departments on the timing issue. Do we want to do a weekly update, or is it going to be a monthly updates? If properties do change and they were in a red status, what's that timing look like? Don't know all those answers yet right now, but the thought is going forward, you would have an opportunity to go from red to yellow to green quickly based on the information that we get from the code and folks. So again, this is 300 parcels that represent close to 13,000 units, rental units across the city. The phase one is only looking at those type of properties. I've worked extensively with John's team to do the research, again, because the data that we get from the county, it includes the parcel type, but it is not, if it's a rental property, we get that information, but we don't have any visibility to how many units are on it. And since we want to only target properties with 5 units or more, it's a little bit of an analysis, almost pretty time intensive, but we've got it done, and this is where we've arrived at for phase one. I'm here to answer any questions. I'm sure you've got some.
Maybe overall, if you could help with how people are interested in knowing how many multifamily units we have versus how many under, I guess you'd call it 1 to 4.
Yeah.
And so do we have a total? And so is this 12, if this 12,000 is, or 12 to 13,000 is your estimate of the total number of 5 or more of rental units that are in a multifamily of 5 or more, then if our total, for instance, that we've talked about is 22,000, does that mean we have 10,000 that are in the other bucket? That's where I'm going with it.
Yes, that would be a correct presumption, although to get the true number, you've got to go out to the assessor's website and enter each of those parcel IDs individually to see how many units there are. So I know that that's not been done, so I don't think that you can give a definitive total count as it is today. We just looked at those 300 parcels to arrive at the confident 12,000 unit number.
Just trying to help
Yeah.
us get big picture from that.
And again, without looking at each of those parcels individually on the assessor's
Understood.
website, we can come up with approximations. I think a number's been given out, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Okay, well, this is really helpful. Do you have a question?
Thank you. Travis, thank you for doing this. I'm just going to say this is not user-friendly to me, but it could be. It could be.
Yep.
It could be if we receive training on it, if different representatives want training on it, because GIS can be really foreign to some of us.
Yep.
But also, I think it would be beneficial to break it down on the map by district. That way, reps can see what they're looking at in their district, because I think we have a lot of unknowns there.
That's a good idea. And the audience, right? Yeah, so we will add that. So you've got a clear indication of where those properties are across the different districts. We'll have a real compelling map when it goes live. It'll have
Yeah.
the emergency responder locations as well, so you can kind of get an
Yeah.
idea. Hey, I'm interested in looking in this neighborhood. How close is it to a fire station or a police station?
Yeah.
Yep, we'll be able to help tell that story.
Great.
This was just more for a visual purpose than anything
Okay.
else.
Good job, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
As far as I'm concerned, if there are questions from the floor right now, we don't need to save them till later. So if somebody, Alex,
Hey,
if you could step to the mic so people who are online could hear. Travis, go ahead and stay there. We'll just share here.
hi, thank you so much. I was wondering, how long do you think it would be to build this out with all the other departments?
Good question. So I can only speak to my dedicated department. I am in the IT department, but again, I'm the GIS mapping division. Our component, the website, the maps, all the things, we could probably get stood up in a month. It's all the back-end stuff where we're talking to our asset management programs, and if we're transitioning now to a different one, which is the Tyler, right? I don't know, do we want to try to build this out to integrate with the remnants of City Works, or do we want to go ahead and move over to the Tyler? So there's just some timing things that I'm not privy to on the back end.
Madam
Get
Chair.
kind of deep into our software conversion. City manager.
Madam Chair, if I could, I think that this is a little out of context without sharing the entire presentation of the rental registry proposal. This is one component of it. The timing of it is also included in the discussion of the item itself.
We can get back to it. Let me clarify, though, that this has been something that the CoCPM has been waiting for a couple of years, with the idea that it alone could provide the information that was needed without having, and then the idea of the rental registry was on top of it. And so understanding what we found so far with the detail that it has is very informative as a base piece of whether this is a component that can stand alone or whether, and certainly it can be used in other units. And so it had been on our priority list for a long time.
But one of the questions was just how do we go about the other
Understood.
departmental
We'll get back to
collaboration?
that when-
And then Travis also referenced red, green, and yellow.
Right.
So,
And-
I mean, that's part of the.
Okay, I
thank
knew
you.
it was coming, so
Thank you.
fair enough. Yeah, there'll be more about how it fits to the proposed rental registries later. Any other questions at this point?
I don't bite, I'm easy.
Well, stay here, Travis. Thank you so much. Next update would be led by Carrie Higgins, I think. We've got a guest as well to talk about the issue of being able to, what was already committed for government-assisted housing checks on interiors and so on. Take it away.
All right, good evening. So we have the 2025 HUD inspection report for all of the HUD-funded properties. So it is, the HUD-funded properties are divided into different.
Sorry. We're looking over the 2025 inspection report for HUD-funded properties. They're divided into different categories, so we'll look at them by the different categories that they're grouped into. The first being the multifamily properties that are project-based. They are inspected by HUD. They use a third-party contractor to do that. And you can see listed on this chart up here the different properties. It'll tell you the inspection score and also the last inspection date for each of those. These properties are inspected every 1 to 3 years based on their score. So if they score 90 or higher, they will be inspected once every 3 years. If they receive a score between 80 and 89, it's once every 2 years, and any properties that score under 80 will receive an annual inspection. The second, oh, you were there, thanks. The second type of property are the low-income housing tax credit properties. We call them LIHTC properties. They are awarded through Kansas Housing Resource Corporation. And you can see on this chart up here the different project names, addresses, their place in service date, as well as their expected end date, and then their inspection date and number of findings. And then the completed date you see on the far right is the date that all of those findings were resolved and the unit was considered brought up to standards. These properties are inspected once every 3 years once they are placed in service. The third group is with the Topeka Housing Authority. It is their public housing. It's site-based HUD-assisted housing, and they are inspected by HUD. You can see the list of the properties there, their inspection score and date. And then we also included some of the 2026 inspection scores on there because several properties have already had inspections done this year. It is worth noting that about 2 years ago, HUD changed their inspection process to the Inspire inspection standard, which is pretty different from what they were using. So there has been a bit of a learning curve, and it has taken a little while to get properties up to these new standards from what they had been previously. And then THA also has what they call housing choice vouchers. These are vouchers that are placed with private landlords. The tenant will receive the voucher and then go find a landlord that is willing to accept it. So the inspections here are done initially before an individual would move in to ensure the home is safe and up to code, and then they are also done annually. They do not get a score. It is a pass-fail. So if it would fail, the landlord has the opportunity to fix whatever needs fixed, and they will do a reinspection. Worst case scenario, if the landlord won't fix the issue or they can't bring it back up to safe standards, then the participant would be released from that property and receive a new voucher to find a new property that could pass inspection. And then the final category is the Shelter Plus Care vouchers through the City of Topeka. These operate very similar to the Housing Choice vouchers. We do an initial inspection before individuals move in. We also do annual inspections. These are placed with private landlords as well. And it is pass-fail. So again, if a unit were to fail, we would continue to re-inspect until it passes within certain timelines. And if it doesn't get to a point where it can pass, then we would issue the individual a new voucher and allow them to find a new unit that does pass inspection. And with that, I am open to questions. We also have Trey here tonight with THA to help answer any program questions as well.
I'll get with you, Councilwoman, in a minute. I think we need to frame why this was on the agenda and maybe why it was being worked on. There had been, could you answer how many units this covers? I think I know the answer, but
Oh, goodness. I don't know offhand.
I think it's about 5,000 is the number that's been put out, but
That sounds about right.
okay, let's say plus or minus 5,000 units then. And this whole issue got brought up thanks to efforts on the part of Ms. Higgins from the Housing Department as well as Councilwoman Valdivia-Alcala when we had a complex that supposedly was under a regular reinspection, HUD reinspection in that case, but was very, very substandard and people were in a terrible situation. Ultimately, for those who followed that story, pressure was put to bear and to bear and to bear, and eventually HUD closed down the complex. With that, the tenants had to move, but they were at least out of that situation. That raised the issue, the idea of, for rental properties especially, in this work that we're doing, looking at what's on the outside is fine, but getting inside makes a difference. And what we realized was that this setup for these complexes, there were different folks that were actually supposed to do the inspections, but if they were being done on this regular 1 year to 3 year cycle, they already had commitments from the tenants to allow entry for those periodic inspections, and that perhaps if they were held accountable, the HUD ones were posted on a national website already, the ones that had been reviewed, but people didn't have access to the LIHTC ones or the annual reviews of the vouchers. Is that correct?
Correct.
Carrie got to work on that and was able to get all of those documents as well as commitments from the folks who did them that they'd be willing to make them public on a regular basis. And so what we were looking at is, well, in terms of a pilot or whatever you want to call it, if those entities would do these inspections on time and in accordance with their own guidelines, would that or could that be quite a start on getting interior inspections done and keeping track of these government-assisted housing units? Am I describing that?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
And so we do have those commitments. If there are questions, Trey George, is the Topeka Housing Authority Director. So his units are inspected by other people, by HUD's inspectors. But then they're also responsible to do inspections for some of these that you identified as well, right? And so if there are questions, or Trey, do you have anything you want to add to that presentation before we have questions or comments? And please come up to the podium if you would.
Good evening, everyone. Nothing to add. I think the presentation covers it a lot. It makes a lot of sense to me. I would understand if it doesn't make a lot of sense to other people just because of how the process works. So I'm happy to answer any questions that may be had.
Well, and just to get the facts out, clear the air, if that's it, there was some confusion, as it turns out, for some time that it was the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation that was responsible for the HUD inspections. It turns out that HUD hires somebody else to do the actual inspections. KHRC just checks tenant paperwork. Is that?
It depends on the property and the program.
Okay.
The ones that I'm more familiar with is on the tax credit side to it. And so KHRC is the funder for those properties. KHRC staff will do inspections on those properties. This is just a straight tax credit property. If it is it could be a tax credit property with a project-based contract, then it's a combination of KHRC staff sometimes, but then most likely it's a HUD hired inspector. Then on the purely project-based contract properties, because you'll have a few of those, they may have started as tax credit properties but have transitioned out of the program. Now they just are a purely project-based site. Those, my understanding is, we don't have any of those, but my understanding is those are inspected by HUD hired inspectors. And so it just depends. Our properties are all inspected by HUD hired inspectors or by a HUD QA inspector.
Okay. Because there'd been doubts about that, and obviously, and Timberley is the complex that that was at issue at first, and it was a mess.
Yeah.
But we did get commitments, and I defer to Carrie again, from each of those entities that they would be willing to be transparent and accountable for the ones that they were responsible for. So it was just an interesting development that has worked in the last, thank you, Carrie, for that.
Absolutely.
With that, questions?
Okay, so you're going to have to repeat that. What has HUD and KHRC committed to?
KHRC.
Or not HUD, or what has the commitments been again? Tell me that.
To work with me annually to be able to pull this data to put together the report.
Okay, so, and then let's move back a little bit to Timberley. If they were not responsible, we were talking to them, we met with them, so why were they there at the inspection? Do you know? Have we ever come to some kind of understanding why they were there with HUD? Does anybody know? Nobody? No. I don't
My
know.
understanding would be, just from what little bit I know about it, is because, so if KHRC, they handle all of the project-based financial contracts, so they make the annual or the monthly payments to the properties. Part of that, then, the tenants have a right to contact KHRC to file complaints.
There it is.
From there, then they will work with the property. Usually they'll contact them. They don't go out and do an inspection necessarily, but they'll contact the property and say, hey, this is the issue that was raised. But then it goes back to a HUD inspection in order to complete that out, is my understanding of it.
Okay, thank you.
So I think at the point where everything kind of got really ramped
Yeah.
up, I think it was just everybody was
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Okay, so I have another question for the LIHTC parts. When you look at motive power plays, I'm wondering if you could just tell me what it means. It says units, it says place in service, their LURA end date, it has the inspection date, it says number of findings, 37, then it has completed date. Is that when all 37 of the findings were completed and fixed?
Yes.
And these are separate than anything, and I just want this for clarity on the record. This would be separate than any code inspection issues that the city of Topeka would have. These are totally separate what happens in the KHRC inspection. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I would say this is my suggestion moving forward, in that this is a very important component, as Chair has said. Because of what happened at Timberley, and you know how much city staff was present, okay? Without the city staff, we've said it over and over, people would have gone unsheltered. In my opinion, and I don't know if the rest of the committee would agree with this, we need to have a policy, procedure, SOP in place if we ever get to this point again. I would imagine that the city has been reimbursed for all the costs that were put out with people in hotels. Is that correct? Have we been reimbursed for everything? Do we know?
Yes, some of the individuals we were able to funnel through different programs to cover the cost.
Okay, so the city did not have to take up a financial burden that was not its burden to begin with, meaning no recoupment in total.
That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay, so because if we don't have something in place, then we're going to have it in the same situation. I don't know how bad it was with the townhomes there southeast of Highland Park townhomes. I know that that went through a very difficult transition, but it did not require, my understanding, for the city to be involved at this level. We have to have something. The other thing that I'm wondering, if it could be considered at this level, as at the committee level, as we go down the road, is to get some kind of sense about what the inspections actually entail, what the HUD inspections entail, whether, you know, maybe that's going to be Inspire, whether, you know, what KHRC inspection, so that we can have some kind of model to compare it kind of to what Chardine's group does, right? And kind of know that. The other thing that we need to keep trying to push for is pushing for the partnerships that we can establish with KHRC. I know we have a good relationship with, you know, with you guys, but what can we expect with KHRC? How can we get the information of when they are receiving complaints that it can come down to the city under the auspices of we are trying to clean up the housing in the city, safe, affordable, decent. So I think that that is something, whether we need to come, you know, to so many committee meetings down the road. And I would say thank you to KHRC if they helped you, you know, get this information. But I think that that back and forth communication is going to be integral, because if we don't have it, we are going to have holes in what we are trying to do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And to be honest, it was only recently, I mean, I learned that it wasn't KHRC that did the inspections, it's somebody else, and that was news to you as well.
Yes.
And so getting that commitment directly from HUD and making sure that their contracted inspector or inspectors are in fact, again, with the transparency, if they're doing it, we should be getting those reports and so on, and some training on Inspire. Exactly. And I mean, if motive power has passed, but code has 12 complaints on it, then somehow we're not getting the right hand and the left hand talking to each other. So, absolutely.
If I may, just a couple of comments. I think sometimes where you see the difference between the inspection day and ongoing code issues is the inspection day is just a single day, and it's only the selected units. So they have a formula. So if it's,
Right.
For example, we were supposed to have an inspection today, but chaos happened with the inspector. He wasn't able to, but for a property that was supposed to have 116 units, 24 were going to be inspected. So it's just a random sampling. The day they show up, they select these units. They view that as this is a snapshot of what's happening at the property. So of these 24 of the 116, this is all we're going to look at today, but then they just assume this is what's happening across all of them. So
sample is good.
where Mr. Chardine's group may get a call from the other that were never inspected, and so that's where, and it's also, again, inspection day is one time, either 1, 2, or 3 years apart. Mr. Chardine's group is available to people every day of the week. So I think that's where you get some of the differences. The other, I was just going to answer the Councilwoman's question. The good news is that with the change to Inspire, everybody inspects under Inspire now. KHRC, HUD, it doesn't matter. It's all under Inspire, where even, I don't know about Shelter Plus Care for sure, but Housing Choice Voucher Program has gone to what they call Inspire V. And so that's the Inspire program for vouchers. It's been delayed. It actually technically is now supposed to go into effect the 1st of next year. But so the standard should be pretty much the same across all of those different federally funded properties. And they do have a website you can go to. It has all the standards on there. You can go, if you select unit, window, here's what they measure that against. Now, the other side to that, as we've seen, as we've had a number of different inspectors, is it is very much subjective to that person's education and training on the Inspire standards. We've had one inspector say this is a problem where this is not. So you also have that human element in there as well sometimes. There's just it's not a real straightforward 100% all the time. This is what it is. They do make the standards black and white, but then it's also subject to interpretation.
I think we have found that out.
Yes.
Thank
yes.
you.
Well, thanks for going over that,
Yeah.
because, I mean, they used to have HQS, Housing Quality
Right.
Standards, and I
Yeah.
remember us all sitting down and comparing HQS to our property maintenance code at the time, and they were really pretty identical, with the exception that HUD required railings on 3 steps, and the city didn't require it till 5 or something
Right.
like that. It was pretty similar, so knowing that helps.
And HUD used to actually have a website where you could go and you could look up any federally funded property and find their most recent inspection score.
They have it now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how
it was
we
gone for a
got
while, and so-
onto that.
okay.
It's anyone that's the HUD is responsible for has, and it was
Glad
posted
they
all
brought it
along, we
back.
just didn't know it.
Yep.
So,
It was hidden in there, so.
well, something. Thank you so much. Any other questions about this? We need to get through these pieces that people have been working on for a while. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Trey. Okay, the next item is sort of an announcement and an introduction. Vander, would you like to step up to the, maybe just step up? When it introduced, one of the pieces that was missing for us was that we had retaliatory protection in the state law and in our city attorney's office, that the city attorney would address the issue with the landlord with fines and fees that would then go to the city if somebody was retaliating. But there was really but also tenants were not eligible to be protected if they hadn't paid the rent or otherwise were not in compliance with their lease. And so we actually have one case, right, and we've had one over 3 years, and there's another one that's just hit that may get the assistance from the city on that. But otherwise, often people run out of steam and they don't pay their rent because they need the money to put a deposit on a new place or, pay to move their stuff and so on. So often there are issues by the time people move out, and there's what they call a constructive eviction, where it's just been miserable enough for long enough, they just finally move out. They don't actually get, quote, evicted, but that's what's happened. And so a piece of our safety net that we'd worked on was how if tenants really have been harmed, they've had moving expenses, their rent is higher than it used to be, lost money because of maybe things that rotted in the property or whatever. Did we have anybody that could help them? We certainly have our housing counseling agencies with HCCI and with Kansas Legal Services, but somebody that could sit down and just talk about that and specialize in small claims court and perhaps develop some volunteers that would be buddies, if you will. It's kind of scary to go by yourself. And so we reached out to Bander Al-Mohammadi, who has offered as a licensed attorney in Kansas to be a volunteer, to provide sessions kind of as often as people want, as well as counsels. And so I want you to introduce yourself and your new your nonprofit quickly anyway.
Thank you so much, Karen, for having me today. So, as Karen said, my name is Bander Al-Mohammadi. I live in Lawrence, but I used to work with the Kansas City UMKC Law School in Kansas City with the tenants, because in Kansas City they have right to counsel program. So basically, we try to help tenants to, avoid any eviction that could be happening to them, and then also provide access to justice for them. And I wrote an article that published nationwide, how to defect tenants. This guidance for new lawyers, I'm going to give it to you. You can disseminate this as you want.
Is that some copies?
Let's come some copies, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to keep a couple, and then you put them on the table when you go sit down. so
Yeah,
people can
absolutely,
get them.
yeah. Okay, that's fine. So
Yeah.
it is published online by American Bar Association. Basically, tells how to defend tenants in court. And then I came up with the idea that housing resolution collaborative. I established this nonprofit organizations in Kansas here. I'm licensed in Kansas and Missouri, both sides. And I came up with the idea with this housing resolution collaborative is like a tool for the landlord and tenant to sit together to resolve the case in an amicable way. Because what I've seen in Kansas City, I've helped more than 300 people. 90% of these tenants, we resolve the case before going to the trial. So we try to prevent any eviction from happening by having people getting together and sit down talking with each other. So Housing Resolution Collaborative has many initiatives, one of them online dispute resolution. Now I'm working with I'm trying to work with the UMKC Law School, KU Law School, and then I'll reach out to Washburn as well, try to have many volunteers to work with this nonprofit organization in voluntary basis to mediate between landlord-tenant and dispute. We try to focus on the federal government, HUD, Housing Authority, Section 8, all of them, because they have, like in Housing Authority, you guys have grievance process. So what I've seen in Kansas City, a lot of issues with the grievance process, with the communication. So, basically, if we can come up with this like tool to have people sitting together and have mediation online instead of having people to come to the office, or to make it more convenient for them, more accessible. And I adapted this idea from my family wizard that is working now nationwide for the family law. So this kind of technology, it's wonderful technology, my family wizard. Then now many courts nationwide using this technology, basically structured messaging and time-stamped vault and share calendars, task management, automated alerts, and audit logs. So basically, everything would be in online, and then this system will filter all the language that communicating between two sides to encourage civil, polite conversation between two sides. Any language is kind of not polite, not civil, is going to be eliminate this language, the idea to encourage civil conversation. Another initiative that we come up with is small claim, like Karen said. Basically, I've been helping people how to file small claim. In the meantime, still people struggling how to file small claim. If we can do this in voluntarily basis, in regular basis, to help them out how to file small claim. And actually, I talked with the guy, UMKC, who he came up with the idea of innovation with expungement. Now in Kansas, they have expungement tool. It is online. Basically, people just fill out the information, and then the system will generate the document for them. Just take it to the court and then file it. They don't have to draft anything. So I'm still working on this to how can we do the same thing with a small claim? People just put the information. We can guide them to fill out the information, and then the document will be generated for them. So basically, that would be requiring to the court to work with us, and then try to work with the judicial system to see if we can do the same thing with the small claims. But for now, I'm trying to help people voluntarily how to file small claim, and then if they have any housing issues, I'm more than happy to guide them and give them some legal advice. Go ahead.
Chair?
Yeah, thank you so much for that, for introducing yourself.
Yeah.
Again, one of the things we've been missing with KLS and with HCCI at this point is the chance for somebody to be available in person.
Yeah.
To talk to people and to counsel them. And so I just wanted to distill out of what you said that though you've got your online some things that have worked really well, that you're available to be able to meet with people in person. Thank you.
Yes.
So that would be, Chair, available to meet in person here in Topeka?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so then this is my question. When it comes time for budgeting and for us to look at the monies with HCCI or whatever services that we use, if this ends up taking off, because there is not a really big footprint anymore of HCCI, I think that we should consider talking about as a committee or wherever the conversation needs to take place, if this ends up working and we see results, about sharing some of that, what money went to HCCI, and actually don't expect a nonprofit to do everything for free, because HCCI or whoever they are now, MMI, MMO, whatever, nonprofits should be paid as well. I understand that this is preliminary, and that's really, really good, and thank you.
Yeah,
We
thanks.
need to see if you're going to work, so work real hard.
Yeah.
Because we need on-the-ground people here in Topeka to
Yeah.
help people.
Yeah.
So thank you.
That's what I'm trying to establish. So, yeah, we'll be in the ground. So doesn't mean that's online, that will be online. No, basically, we're going to educate people. We're going to have education tool, how to do it and everything. So once we have the education part is done, then we can go the next step. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We did not get contact information for you in advance. Did you have anything is there contact information on what you're leaving in the back table?
I have my email. I have my KU contact information, but I can put down my my Gmail because I need people to communicate with me with
Okay,
the
well, we
Gmail.
just want to make sure we have an email and a phone number.
Yeah, I'll put it down. So,
Okay, thank
Do
you.
you like me to put them here or where?
Um,
Oh,
Someplace,
that's yours? Oh, sorry. That's fine. I'm trying to find out.
we'll get it. We've got a question for you from
Yeah.
behind you.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Alex. I'm with
Nice to
Topeka Tenants. Thank
Uh-huh.
you for what you do.
Absolutely.
So do you currently have an in-person, meeting area where people who are either facing retaliation or want to go to small claims court can meet with you at?
That's what I'm trying to do now with
Okay.
the city now. If there's any way to accommodate like a place and time.
The library works really well for that, but we could certainly work on, he has just worked at this agreement, wanted to make sure he was here today when people were here, so you could meet him, and then we can work out more,
Yeah.
if there are
In
ideas
detail,
that
yeah.
people want regularly, that can be worked out, or as needed, of course, as well.
Wonderful. I'll get your contact
Yeah,
information.
I'll give it
Thank
to you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll leave this one for you guys if you'd like to learn about my article. Put them there or this.
There's a
Here,
literature
okay.
table right
I'll
there.
put them down here. Yeah.
Thank you, and hopefully you'll stay for the rest and
Yeah, I'm gonna
learn
stay,
what
yeah,
else we're
absolutely.
thinking and doing. Thank you. All right. Speaking of education, Carrie, I don't know if you've got updates, but we were working with both HCCI and KLS for overall tenant and landlord education.
No dates just yet. MMI is still training, and they are not quite ready to schedule education dates. Nick Blessing is working on potentially an August or September date. He just doesn't have a final date ironed out just yet, but hopefully soon.
Okay, well, Vander, we may call you sooner than you thought. Is he still there? Yeah, okay. Yes.
Real quick, I still think, I can't remember if I brought it up in this committee or somewhere else, we should really think about utilizing what's called something similar to the Promotora program. Have I spoke about that before? Where an entity educates on landlord tenant or whatever the case may be. They get paid a small stipend, very small stipend. They go out into their community and they train more people, and they are at an incredibly grassroots level, English, Spanish, what have you, different ages, et cetera. But I think we should try to research if there's any programs out there like that, because we know that we're on the short end of the stick when it comes to for education. I mean, let's just see, let's be creative, let's play and see what is out there and what other people are, what other municipalities are doing. But it's always been called the Promotora program, but with the emphasis of going out and reaching out deeply into community. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, because the HCCI was doing your Impact Avenues sessions, but then we were looking at 2 for focused on tenants, but anybody could come, and 2 for landlords that anybody could come, and they've historically done both in the community, but that's stalled because they're changing counselors, right?
Yes,
And
that's
then
correct.
KLS has not done it that often, but they did 1 last year, and so, yeah, working out just some timing and perhaps with you all really to see what kind of pace. I mean, it seemed like not having them all happen at the same time, we were working a little bit on that, and then both of them got stalled, so really open to getting that set. All right, and the last item on there, Dan, can you go back to the power, let's see, the, yeah. And then go to probably about slide 6. It's got the list of our upcoming meeting topics. Keep going. Yes. Just wanted everybody to know that as we talked about, the focus today, this evening, is on rental relation issues. On July 9th, which is our regular July meeting, the focus is on the code standards themselves, as well as the fines and fees and the administrative and court procedures that we have. One of the things that we've found, for instance, is we've got these fees for repeat offenders, but you have to have been convicted in court because we're using a criminal track instead of a civil track. So a lot of the repeat offenders aren't being charged anything at all. We're just going out time and time again. So whether it's rentals or homeowners. And so thinking, there are some worksheets that are on the table back there that we really would like to see people fill out today. You can leave them today or in the future, but to be thinking about the cases that you're familiar with and what worked and what didn't, so that we actually are looking at what's in the code and the standard inspections, administrative appeals, fines, and fees. That's the July 9th meeting. August 24th is vacant properties. Those who are visiting may not have as much interest in those, but when they're vacant, it matters. We're looking at really, can put those together, that September, October, November, December, the rest of the year was to take the various issues that have emerged out of these 4 months, May, June, July, and August, identify which ones need some work, and be working on a master recommendation to the city manager and council for where we think we are, what we think was working in the Changing Our Culture of Property Maintenance Initiative, what we tried and it didn't really work out very well, and whether we need anything extra. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware. Everyone's invited, and putting your thought into those kinds of things matters. Again, that's the context that the rental issues are in too. Again, we're trying to make sure that the things that were already on deck were working before we added anything else. But if there are good ideas and things we should look at in place of what we're doing or in addition to what we're doing, that's what we're here for in 2026. Okay, with that, moving on the CoCPM overview, moving to our presentation section. Again, there are sheets in the back table. Wanted to make sure that, how many people picked up the little worksheets for rentals, landlords, and maintenance? A lot of you? Okay. Well, I encourage you to. What we want to do is have everybody focus on what the needs are. Those are pretty much agreed. Then what we have in place. We have in place right now a property maintenance code. We have state laws that cover both tenant landlord as well as mobile home parks. We have retaliation protections here in Topeka and a system for fines and fees. All of those matter in terms of making the system work. We do have counseling, free for tenants and for landlords. So we've got that piece in place. Education, programs planned. Outreach, we have our city communications department helping to get the word out about various subject matter, and those can be prioritized. If you want to go down, actually these sheets, Dan, are in the other, in the agenda. Sorry. 3A. Yes, that one. That's exactly what we're on right now. So you can see that this is what what the pieces have. We do have the education programs planned. Outreach, we've got the capacity right now within the system. If there are things that people think we need to educate the public about a little bit more using social media as well as the media, we have that staffing to help with that. We also have our Office of Inclusive Communities that, and with our property maintenance unit that do cleanup events as well as various special events, housing resource fairs and so on, to get the word out to folks. So the city has already offered capacity to do outreach, and if there are ideas or suggestions on how to use what we already have, the staff has been really open to that. We do have a social services safety net for renters in particular to help with rent, utilities, other things that are needs. Sometimes people can get food money or medical money that releases money for rent, so it balances out. We have a good network here, and Carrie and her staff are phenomenal at getting people connected. In terms of accountability strategies in rental situations, we do have databases to find owners through the county, as well as who the LLC principals are if we need them. There has been discussion that maybe we need to do more on knowing who the people are in LLCs. For the most part, John and his staff have been really good about figuring that out, but if there was a way to change the state law to say that everybody who's got an interest in it or more than 10% or something like that is listed, so it's easy for anybody to find in one click. Maybe that's something to look at. We have a public portal. There's been people who wanted to know information about the code violations that we have. Actually, for well over 20 years, we've kept that. It's been a public portal. It's been on the city's website, but we realized when we got into this process that a lot of people didn't know it was there. And with the recent changes in our website, no finger pointing to anybody exactly, but it's pretty darn hard to find now, but it's there. And so you can track by address, and you can figure out through the Shawnee County database what properties any individual owns or an LLC. And we do have retaliation protections. So we already have accountability strategies built in terms of what's on deck. The GIS mapping that Travis just walked us through, we've been looking forward to that for years. Thought it might be enough to be what we needed to direct our, we've got that down two down there. We've had a partnership arrangement set up between our fire department and our property maintenance guys. You can kind of drive around and figure out how many properties are 5 or more units without having to do a whole lot of fancy GIS at all. And John's got his people and fire as well with their territories. But certainly, I mention that because we built into the program that we have already that those inspectors would do outreach and simply meet people where they are, hand out brochures, talk about the resources that are available from the city. The mapping was going to make it a little clearer that you could look at the map and know by council district or by inspector district where you wanted to go. So that's on deck. It hasn't been fully actualized, but it's been something we were expecting all of these to go live this year and have some time during these months of review to see how they worked. Also, once all the technological, Tyler, et cetera, gets worked out, Travis knows this, the vision that we've had is, and an agreement in our plan was to have an interface between the case database files that fire has and that property maintenance has and that the police department have, so that in real time, like go back 5 years, but what happened yesterday, if somebody's called out to a property, some of the ones that are most challenging for John are where like somebody died, where you've got a phantom owner or whatever. Yet when you compare those databases, you know if there was a problem out there, you know who responded. You can generally find out by sharing that data who turned it in. Those people may know something about the owners or the heirs and things like that. So that has been on deck, waiting for all the pieces to come in place. But we felt that in terms of safety of our enforcement people, as well as actively being able to contact owners and get things done, that combined database would really be effective. We talked about the government-assisted housing inspections already, and then the small claims court assistance that's just come on board. What we've been missing for renters is outreach people to go on site with tenants as needed, which we discussed a little bit this evening. We also know that the most serious issues that we've been concerned about are inside. They require getting inside to see the inspections. And so without being able to do that by forcing people to do it, we know we've got the 5,000 units that government's going in anyway, and then looking at maybe how to build from there for success. We need to double check that our standards are reasonable and the enforcement is consistent. That's where feedback of the case stories can work. Fine and fee system we talked about, whether our city retaliation ordinance, now that we've tested it for a couple of years, is really doing what we need, or whether we should roll back to what we used to have. And then also look at deep penetration in media. How do we make sure that everybody in town knows what their rights are, or their kids or their neighbors?
Chair?
Yes.
I don't know. Legal, tell me, when can a call or a point of order be called?
I don't have the rules of order with me tonight.
Okay,
Robert, do you have an idea?
I'm just asking, Chair, are you going to read all of this? Because my issue is time. sorry. If you're, this is 1, 2, 3 pages and additional comments. It's 7 o'clock, and we still have a lot to go through. I am just asking if the people don't have the ability to read this themselves, to save us some time, because it makes me concerned that it'll cut into either public comment or something where people are going to end up leaving because it's too late. So that's what my question is.
Thank you. Really wanted to go through the rental side just because not everybody's been here and I'm not sure they got a chance to see the work that we did in May. We're trying to make sure that everybody who's involved in these conversations knows what we've done already and what resources we have. The landlord ones are very similar to the tenant ones. It lists some resources for landlords, facade programs and so on, and other possibilities. The accountability strategies are the same. And then the sheet that we talked about, if you went ahead and go ahead to the next one, Dan. That's just a worksheet for you to use today if you're thinking about things, but anytime. Again, we'll be focusing on what's the content of the code and how's the enforcement procedure going next time. And with that, just wanted to lay some groundwork as we get proposals. I'm not sure any of these that we got in were specific about whether they wanted, it appeared they each wanted to add over and above what we have already rather than substitute. When people present, they may cover more than that, but wanted to make sure you knew what we had, and then we'll talk about some ideas for how to do it better. And with that, if there aren't any questions about what changing our culture is doing right now, let's move on. The first, I should mention, though, in the overview, that our 2026 budget for our property maintenance unit is $2,450,000. We have 20 FTEs in that unit. Additionally, we had a presentation to the council last week at our council meeting about the costs that we're incurring for clearing homeless camps. And with 4 different departments involved in those clearances, the total was $388,000 a year, and the city manager indicated that he thought that would be sustained. Of that, $180,000 is property maintenance, so that's already counted. When you add the rest of it, we've already got $2.658 million in city money addressing property maintenance and homeless camps. So wanted to share both programmatically and dollars. So with that, Daisy Karimi was our first submission of proposals. Hers is the multifamily rental registration pilot.
Hi, my name is Daisy Karimi, and I live in Central Highland Park area. I respectfully ask the Public Health and Safety Committee to advance the multifamily rental registry as part of the Change Our Culture Property Maintenance of 2026 work plan. This pilot would create a single authoritative record for Topeka multifamily rentals and properties ownership and so forth. To save time, I'm going to kind of summarize some of this scenario. So essentially, this approach is built to answer 2 questions this committee has rightfully asked continually. How is this different from the vacant property registry that has failed, and what would be the cost? Both are addressed within this particular proposal. The needed statements at this particular time is the committee owns a record. The committee owns over records over the past 3 meetings and documents and so forth that I've been reading. And a lot of these conversations do seem, excuse my language, a little bit redundant, especially when it comes to the following 4. Life safety. Members have described fires across all districts with loss of lives, and the chair has noted that 5 fires in District 1 within 3 weeks. That substandard multifamily housing repeatedly raised in these committees, including HUD's monitoring properties that scored a 73 on the most recent inspection, while publicly it was listed as 0, is where that risk is concentrated at. No reliable inventory. Unfortunately, a lot of this information is available, but at this particular time, it's scattered amongst different sources such as MyGov, Shawnee County Appraisal, GIS Hub, outside agencies such as KHSRS, Topeka Housing Authority. There's no central or public real-time view, especially just to note, it's not in this particular proposal. If there is a fire, that's not readily available to the individuals who are taking that time. They have to track and they have to be well knowledge of this information. Ownership, that cannot be traced. As a member and a resident, I have noted when property sits aside in separate LLCs, identifying a responsible party becomes very difficult, in which precisely when code, fire, and tenant problems most tendingly end up happening during these scenarios. And then there's oversight gaps amongst these scenarios. Even where outside agencies inspect, accountability, information sharing, or even placing adding burdens to PMU, fire, and housing staff. That common thread is that the information gap, the city is already doing all the work of the inspections, which has readily been repeated tonight. But unfortunately, at this particular time, there is no central place for individuals or effective places so that individuals can get the information from the city or public. By providing a rental registry, this provides agency to the city and to the public in a form of transparency. Why this pilot and why it will not repeat the vacant property registry. The concern from what I've heard from this committee is that unfortunately the fate of the vacant property registry was obsolete to a certain degree. I always have noted and said privately or within these rooms to individuals that was because it was a voluntary position with no consequences made out to the public. Unfortunately, when as a volunteer in multiple things, if there's no stake in a particular sense, we have a hard time participating overall. It has, but within this particular pilot, you can clearly see it has a complex nexus. It also builds in inspections that are already being done. Multifamily is a right of place of beginning for the same reason. It carries the highest life safety risk. It is the substandard condition and concentrations of inspections, real relationships ready, making this opportunity a real sense for residents to honestly own up to the particular issues in our city. How would the pilot would work? First, who's registered? Owners of multifamily rentals are the beginning portion of the particular conversation. For example, properties of 5 or more units consisting with staff drafting. Therefore, policies should be placed within those areas. What is collected? Legal owners' records, the name of LLCs that are hard to find and so forth, the number of uses, the basic property identifiers, and current inspection statuses. Where it lives inside the city. Existing platforms such as MyGov now, migrating possibly into Tyler as that comes online at this particular time. And it's not a separate tool or something else we additionally have to buy at this present moment. Also, public transparency. A searchable, faceable view is something that the public craves, wants, and desires. And then inspections linkage. The registry would flag units with existing fire or POM cadences reflecting that the inspections scores already are being reported by HUD or KHRC or THA being placed there. So that can be public information for individuals plus people at home or for the city. Enforcement. The registry requires to be operated and escalated with consequences for non-registrators or people who are not registered or for simple low-cost paths. I do want to know there was concern brought prior to this proposal in the public sense where some cities like Spoken, an example that ties the registry to a rent or eviction restriction. Unregistered units cannot be raising, essentially in these particular models, unregistered units cannot raise rent or pursue eviction if they're not up to code on the rental registry. This particular model, I do believe, can stand on its own at this particular time, but I do believe that this does need to be addressed in its own separate ordinance. Support for responsible landlords. If you take a look at this pilot, you can definitely see that at this time, this is not a form to punish landlords or good landlords. This is an opportunity for transparency and also providing individuals the ambiguity to essentially report what's going on interiorly. So supporting responsible landlords by reducing inspection frequencies, fee discounts for safety improvement, a single or clear point of contact, connections to weatherization or other improvement programs that they might need, like through CIP or so forth. And I also do believe a seat at the table is very much needed for good landlords. Before any structure fees are presented by this committee and staff, I do believe that the Shawnee County Landlord Association and multifamily owners and operating should be part of the conversation, so that we can have a dialogue as a community to see what these fees would look like, so that we can support our good landlords and then even showcase them at a later time. Legal footing under the Kansas law. As we all know, the registration is currently to the Kansas KSA Statute 12-16138. Permitting an address or a residential place is not allowable without consent at this particular time. This pilot or rental registry continues with that narrative. Unless consent is given, and I do believe consent or unanimously or private, some sort of consent should be provided within this force, so that people can report on these particular scenarios like we saw in Timberland or we might see in Deer Creek or other places, I suspect, once this registry becomes online. Then lastly, let's see here. Phasing pathways. So now at this particular time, I believe this pilot is the first phase, not the whole program. It would be able to operate within the currently as it stands, it could be operating within the 26 calendar, with the committee being able to review this in October 8th and November 12th as reviewing the data as it currently stands, giving a real off ramp in the both directions. I don't believe in analysis paralysis. I do believe in data-driven forward actions. This particular pilot gives it the opportunity so that the committee can review it in November and October and see if this is something that could become a citywide program. Cost estimates are placed inside this particular proposal, which actually similarly state what the city has already brought at this particular time, anchoring the lowest cost of this particular area being $15 a unit to the highest places where you can see when Portland, Maine, $50 per unit and so forth. This is a self-efficient process where essentially over the time with all the units in 12,000 or 12,743, this can be self-efficient and being able to pay for itself over time, alleviating the burdens of other things that this particular committee has. Fitting this with inside the particular tract is something that I request. Property maintenance, housing service, fire, illegal, and IT to scope this multifamily registry, including the recommended units and threshold and fee structure, enforcing mechanisms such like this. Of course, again, bringing the Shawnee County Landlord Association into this conversation is a dire portion of it, so that we can develop what needs to be done within October and November. Sorry for rushing it through, but again, it's time-savvy kind of person.
Thank you. You had a lot to cover.
Yeah.
Are there questions from the committee or from the floor? Thank you. We might come back to you, so don't go anywhere. Thank you. The next one that we have is the one that the city manager has submitted, titled a draft registry proposal. My understanding is, I think, Carrie, you and John
Dan's
are...
going to pull up the PowerPoint.
Yeah. It's in there. For those of you who don't have paper copies in your lap and want them, all these are now online, and Daisy's was updated yesterday or today, so if you want to find them and don't already have them, they're available. There we go.
Ready?
Oh, you, okay.
My name is John
Chardon.
Chardon. I'm your property maintenance director.
Yep.
So over the last few months, we were asked to develop a concept, and I'm just one of many of the team that developed this with the guidance of our city manager. The current enforcement challenges that we're experiencing is primarily reactive, relying on complaints and visible violations before the action occurs, limited ability to identify deteriorating property conditions early. Repeat offenders often require multiple inspection enforcement actions and city resources. Complex ownership structures of absentee ownership can delay communications and compliance. Lack of updated property contacts can slow correction of unsafe housing conditions, and limited tenant education and resources. Why this program matters. I think we all agree that safe, stable housing strengthens neighborhoods and supports community well-being. Most landlords maintain quality properties and operate reasonably and responsibly. A small number of chronically non-compliant properties create the greatest impact through repeated violations, complaints, and demand city resources. Addressing the gaps in rental housing accountability, the Landlord Registry program establishes a proactive, data-driven approach to focused and accountability, transparency, and voluntary compliance. By maintaining accurate ownership and emergency contact information, identifying reasonable parties, and categorizing properties based on compliance history, the city can prioritize resources toward properties with the greatest impact to residents and neighborhoods. Balanced and targeted approach supports reasonable landlords, responsible landlords, rewards consistent property maintenance, reduces unnecessary city involvement, prioritizes repeat offenders and safety concerns, and uses resources where they have greatest impact. Our goals: improve the housing quality and neighborhood stability, increase accountability and transparency, promote voluntary compliance, focus resources on problem properties, and empower tenants through education. You see that number 5 will be reoccurring through the whole program. Strengthening Topeka's rental housing system. This program is not designed around the landlords who are doing things right. It's designed to identify and address the small percentage of properties creating the largest impact on tenants, neighborhoods, and city resources. We do this in phases. Phase 1 covered properties, all residential properties with 5 or more units located within city limits, including apartment complexes, condominiums rented to non-owners, and mixed-use buildings with 5 or more residential units. The exemptions: owner-occupied duplexes, triplexes, properties under active condemnation, university-owned student housing with their own inspection regime, and short-term rentals already licensed City Topeka's STR ordinance. Phase 2, 3 or more years, properties with 2 to 4 unit single-family rentals, mobile home parks. Registration deadlines: all covered Phase 1 and 2 properties must register within 180 days of ordinance effective date. Registry data requirements. Upon registration, landlords must provide legal name, contact information of property owner, local property manager or agent contact information, property address, unit count, unit types, unit occupancy status, ADA accessibility compliance for common areas, 1990 post, proof of current good standing with the Kansas Secretary of State, all data maintained in a city-administered database, updated annually, and public-facing portal will display a 24-month rolling property tier, inspection history, and violation history. The registry creates a reliable communication pathway. Before enforcement occurs, the city needs to know who is responsible and can resolve the problem. Tiered inspection system. The tiered system allows the streamlined interaction with responsible landlords, focus limited enforcement resources to the 10 to 20% properties that generate the vast majority of the housing issues. Tier 1, get inspected every 4 years, clean record, no code violations previous 24 months. This is all based on a 24-month back look, or look back.
Or non-compliance, remember the unresolved.
Unresolved also, I'm sorry. It's charged $20 a unit. Good standing, on the public side, it would be a green color. Tier 2, every 2 years for the inspection, minor violations for nuisance types, issues, but no life safety violations in previous 24 months. $30 a unit. That would be a yellow color on a public portal side. Tier 3 would be every year, life safety violations, convictions, 3 or more minor non-life safety violations in preceding 24 months. It's charged $40 per unit. Needs improvement, which would be a red on the public portal side. What is required from the landlord or property owner? Provide tenant information. All registered multifamily properties must post and maintain the following information in a common area that is clearly visible and accessible to the residents. Current city issued tier status certificate, name, address, and 24-hour emergency contact information, responsible party, manager, or designated agent, one-page tenant rights summary, city code complaint contact numbers, 311 service information including notification of tenant complaints or confidential. Additionally, landlords must provide a tenant right brochure to all new renewing tenants at the time of the lease signing to ensure residents understand availability resources, reporting options, and housing standards. Staffing requirements, phase 1. Like you said, we have an estimate of over 12,000 units, 5 or plus more. This is what it's going to require to immediately enforce. 2 FTE, property maintenance inspectors. We thought collectively as a group that this should belong to property maintenance since we already are conducting these inspections. We're doing this process already. 2 FTE inspectors, salary and benefits, 1 FTE assistant in the office, 1 TGIS. 0.5? I thought it was 1. I thought we had. Oh.
We made an adjustment.
Oh, we did. Okay, so 0.5.
Wondered about that.
2 vehicles, one-time cost, equipment, registration fees, surcharges and late fees. Total is roughly $250,000, 932 cents. $334,000 for the first year with trucks. Financial model. Category. So the units affected for the Category 1 would be roughly 4,800, Category 2, 2,900, Category 3, 989 in Category 3 with fire code violations, 3,980. Number of buildings, implemental cost per unit, implementation totals, and then maintenance cost per unit. The maintenance difference from the initial, because this is during the second year, is that what we decided? And that's why it's less. And then the maintenance totals on the right-hand side. So the total would roughly be $305,620. Estimated $334,932 for the first year with trucks, $250,000 annually thereafter. Matrix, evaluation matrix and accountability. Registration compliance rate, 4+ units. That should be 5. 70%, and then year 2 would be 85%. That's our target. Percent of inspection units with no critical violations, baseline established, 10% improvement from the baseline is second year. First year number of Tier 3 properties, established baseline reduced by 15%. Year 1 tenant awareness of registry and rights survey, launch survey, 50% awareness among renters covered properties. Program revenue and expenditure ratio at or above 1. Are cost neutral at or above 1.2, generating reserve for year 2 and moving forward. And this is a map which we already discussed, and you see 5 or more units per each parcel. Who benefits from this? When we developed this, we all discussed who are we really trying to benefit? So the first one would be the tenants, improves access to safe, well-maintained housing, clear understanding of rights and available resources, direct access to responsible parties, property contacts, and city assistance. Responsible property owners, recognition for monitoring quality housing, reduced inspections through positive compliance history, a fair system that separates responsible landlords from repeat offenders. Neighborhoods, earlier identification of declining properties, reduced impact from neglect or unsafe housing, and improved neighborhood stability and property values. City operations, accurate ownership and emergency contact information, faster communication and voluntary compliance, and focused enforcement on with resources on properties needing the most attention. And with that, I'll open to any questions. I'm very excited. Daisy's presentation almost paralleled to ours. So,
They might be first cousins.
yeah.
Councilwoman.
I have a couple of questions. Well, I think I just have one question, then I have a comment that, some input that hopefully will make sense as we're moving along on this. But one, what you presented and said it was a compilation, you know, a whole bunch of people were involved at the city, and it was the city managers. Did you take any of the information at all from what was passed around with the landlord registry and the tenant protection? Was any of that taken from?
We collected ideas from everybody.
But I'm
That
asking
too,
this
yes.
specifically.
That was,
Okay.
we've seen that before, yes.
Okay, then my suggestion is, because public was involved in this,
Mm-hmm.
that the public gets some credit for this.
Oh,
too.
absolutely.
I mean, I think we need to be vocal about that. I think that, you know, I don't know if, because I didn't know if that was something that city manager you got from Dallas on their program. I mean, you had been telling us for 2 years that, you know, we were going to have this. So knowing this was a hard copy pilot and seeing some similarities, but some watering down, I just think that it is something that should be acknowledged, because then that lets the people know, besides us as elected officials and staff and administration, that lets the people know that their voices are putting this together. Because I understand that you had some of the people at the table with this, but there are other people that have put information forward, and what we need to do is we need to let folks know that this is a combination of not just the administration or the elected officials, that this is a combination of what the people's voice has helped put through. And I think that's very important. And not to do that, I think, does us all a disservice.
I agree 100%. And moving forward, we will continue that practice of asking the public
Okay.
if they like, or if they have additional ideas.
Okay, so this may be what, you were at the meeting last night on the mobile home park, okay, and so was Dan. Okay, we had a meeting at a mobile home park about a number of issues that were going on. John came forth and he talked about a number of code issues, very relevant code issues. And we were looking at the mobile home park ordinance and what you can and cannot do, what you can and cannot write up, right? Then there was like this little semi-awakening as we were talking about it, you know, the advocates that were there, that we were looking at the mobile home parks as far as the municipal code. And we're looking at the 5.100, you know, 0.010, and on. But, you know, we're looking at things like investigation of violations and fees, how an inspector that goes out and looks at things that may or may not be violations of a mobile home park, that the owner of the mobile home park, the licensee, may actually get charged for the amount of time that the PMU person is out there. And then you also have certification before any license may be issued under this chapter. The applications for the license must be certified by the code enforcement director as complying with the city ordinance. Prior to the certification by the code enforcement director, the premises must be inspected and approved by the code enforcement director or duly authorized individual. Then we go down to 5.100.080, revocation and suspension. This is the first time I've ever seen this. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are aware of it, but I wasn't. The code enforcement director is hereby authorized to revoke any license issued pursuant to the terms of this chapter if, after due investigation, he determines that the holder thereof has violated any of the provisions of this chapter, or that any mobile home or mobile home park is being maintained in an unsanitary or unsafe manner or is a nuisance. So when we came upon that, we were like, oh, wow, man, we never knew that that was there. And so part of the conversation that we had with Dan is, you know, how, and then we're going to have with you, is how can we move forward in these really bad mobile home parks, you know, where the owners have been repeatedly, you know, contacted, and we had some examples there about, you know, being more aggressive on this. So I'm using this as an example because what I am inquiring about, and I don't know if legal can answer this or the city manager or you, is there any way then to try to use these type of methods that are already in our municipal code, that are already in our mobile home ordinance? Is there any way that that could possibly apply to the multifamily dwellings that we're talking about, or as that we're talking about when we're talking about the, you know, the rental registry and ordinances and fines and fees? I am just throwing that out there. I know that it is something that we cannot discuss tonight, but I want to see if there can be an interconnectedness, because we already have this on the books. Is there possible that we can't do it because something with, you know, multifamily dwellings may go through the Secretary of State versus Development Services handles the licensure of mobile homes, right? Of the
That's correct.
Right? What I'm trying to see is if there can be a connection. If not, okay, we've researched it. We've done our due diligence. But there may be something, because all the concerns about what we're doing may not be legal, or, you know, whatever the case may be. We have something already on the books in reference to mobile home parks. That's what I'm putting forward. Again, we can't talk about it tonight.
Well, thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah.
That's, and maybe we can include it when we're talking next week about standards and fines and fees and progressions. So thank you.
Yeah.
We'll,
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Other questions or comments on this particular proposal?
You know, I'd like to add, this is very high level at this time. This is just a concept. We're open to additional ideas from the public, as well as from staff members from the city. And we will continue to look at this until you tell us to stop. I think it's going to come down to a council meeting, and we're going to let you guys decide whether you want us to continue with this study or if you just want us to stop and start enforcing what we have.
Well, and we'll keep talking about it. I mean, the idea, as I described, was that we had our set process going, so whether you know, it's a little premature to insist on a decision when it sounds like both are unformed. And if there's more data and more information that would really help consideration at this level. We've got landlords here who have some comments tonight, but you all brought up the fact of fully engaging the apartment council as well as Shawnee County Landlords Association before anything would progress. We've got a couple of people here, but certainly haven't invited them as an association, so that is something that can happen as well. Let's go ahead and have the time check for everybody. It is 7:35. As far as I'm concerned, we can stay here as long as people want. We didn't have any other proposals except the three. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people signed up for public comment that haven't already presented. So we may be able to just wrap it all up by 8 o'clock sharp but just know that as far as I'm concerned, some of us can stay. He needs to get out of here.
We all need to get out.
Anyway, we may well make it just fine, just letting you know. Also, John, we didn't say anything, and I just realized, before people go or on your way out, John has brought a full collection of the handouts that property maintenance is using. So if you haven't seen them before, they're here, and you're welcome to take them as well. But staff through the department, as well as through the Changing Our Culture Property Maintenance and over at Fire, have spent a lot of time trying to add materials. The guys when they go out and do the inspections, each have a tote with a full selection of those, and they've made it a high priority to educate people when they arrive on site.
It will be
whatever the
available at the next
circumstances
expo
are.
as well.
There you go. My understanding is we had a submission from a gentleman named Riley Ringgold, who was sort of a response from the property owner point of view. He was not able to come this evening, but Steve Vogel, who's the president of the Landlords Association, offered to make some comments. Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, my name's Steve Vogel. I'm the president of the Shawnee County Landlords Association. If I could, I'd like to maybe ask a few questions. If you could give very brief answers, I'll try to be as quick as I can. The first one is this: is the rental registry ordinance going to be used as a revenue generating tool? Is that part of the reason for it?
No. That's not the intent.
Okay, it just says here in the very last thing, it says, on the very bottom thing on the last page, it says at or above 1.2 generated in reserve.
I'm going to let the city manager answer that as well.
I'm going to just say, Mr. Volga, as we spoke last week, that, we're looking to essentially recoup the costs of the service. These are all projections. We don't know what the exact revenue is going to be generated off of it, but again, the intent on the fees is to collect enough to provide the service.
Okay, thank you. Okay, a second question is this: why are Tier 1 properties being inspected? What is the reasoning for that?
If you look at and I'm glad that we talked about the HUD model, but essentially it almost follows a HUD model, right? Where, we put eyes on proactively on every property in Tier 1. Again, if there's no major issues, then we leave it alone for 4 years. So it's really just for us to proactively put eyes on all the rental properties. And essentially, if it's a yellow or red property, it would be visually inspected sooner. So,
Okay.
and again, I just want to make that clarification, right? When we're talking about these inspections, we're not talking about internal mandatory inspections. We're talking about external inspections as co-compliance would do today.
So the inspections you're talking about for the 12,000, eventually all 12,000 properties are not interior inspections?
So common spaces, and John, help me out here, but
Yeah.
common areas, exterior inspections, similar to what code is doing right now. We're not trying to force our way into people's apartments or anything like that. So it's very much what our co-compliance department's doing today.
So even on Tier 3 properties, no code enforcement person is going to be knocking on somebody's door asking if they can come in?
When we do the inspections for the common areas, we place a little sticker on the door saying if your needs aren't being met by the management and you encounter life safety issues or code violations, and we have a contact number on there to contact.
Which is basically what we have right now.
That is correct, just the same rules and
Okay.
regulations.
Very good. Thank you. We've heard that there is no reliable inventory of rental properties. I'm just going to, we've already gone over this, but we got this, I think you call it the financial thing, and also this draft map. I just really take issue with that. I just don't think that's true at all, that there's no reliable inventory. I do understand that this is a work in progress, but I'm going to bet that you'll get that right to where you have a publicly searchable, easy to find database where any, say, prospective tenant can look up a property or an owner or an address and say, yeah, this person's had, or this owner has had multiple code violations in the past couple of years or whatever, which is what, if I understand right, that's what they're looking for. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Very good. But anyway, well, I guess my point about that is the rental registration pilot that's not necessary for that. That's going to be done anyway. Am I right or wrong about that?
Is what going to be done?
I mean, this publicly searchable database is going to be done regardless of whether this rental registry program goes forward or not.
I have not discussed that, City Manager.
I mean, I think it's already going on, isn't it? I
So-
mean, you're already working on it. We talked about that.
So what was presented this evening, again, and I don't know if you caught on to Travis's discussion, right? But there was a certain level of assumption that we have everything accurately collected, right? So, I mean, I didn't want to ask Travis earlier, but his confidence level, I don't know if it's like 95% that we.
I mean,
and I hear your point, right?
Yeah.
But again, part of the discussion is, all of these other pieces are in other places as far as, who's the manager, who's the contact. Hey, are they in good standing with the state, the Secretary of State? I mean, there's a number of things that we're trying to consolidate into one location to make it easily accessible. So it's not, if I want to find the owner, I need to go to the Shawnee County Appraisal District. If I want to find the LLC, I need to go to the state of Kansas's website. If I want to find, the contact information for the manager on property, I don't know how we get that. And a lot of times it's, we'll visit a property, and John, please correct me if I'm wrong, we'll visit a property, one day, and then 3 months later, the manager has changed, and it's, I think the intent from our side is try to consolidate all the information into one place. And as I shared with you previously, and even as late as Friday, when I talked to the Landlords Association about this, the question that was posed is, what do the landlords get out of this? And so part of it is, and I told you, I pondered on that, and the idea of, hey, you know what, like, what do the landlords get out of this? Good landlords will be able to, confidently say, hey, you know what, we have no unresolved code issues within the last 24 months. So if a renter is going to go look at, this registry, they can see that this is, you can assume that it's a good actor, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'll just leave it at that. We're basically trying to be able to educate the public as well as to, on the landlord side, to say, hey, you know what, if I'm doing everything right, then I'm not going to be lumped in with everybody else.
Yeah, I guess I have a really, really hard time believing this, particularly for these 5+ unit properties, that the city doesn't have an inventory of that. I just have a really hard time believing that.
It's really not the inventory of the property itself, Steve. It's the people who protect the property and maintain the property. And,
Right.
And who's actually making those repairs? Like Trey,
Yeah.
are you still here? Today. Here's a great example. I had an issue with a property that Trey oversees. I called him up immediately. Trey answered immediately, and he had somebody address it immediately. That never happens unless I have somebody's phone number on my phone,
Okay.
and I know who to contact. Steve, I've never had a complaint on any of your properties, but I assure you, if I did, you're the first person I call, and I get immediate response, and you address it. That's not the same around the city. I assure you of that.
I don't want to go on too long, but
Yeah.
I was just handed this tonight. This is, I guess, a part of the Kansas law, and apparently that's already part of Kansas law, is that they have to provide you with that information. And I've also got a question that, I'm not a lawyer, so I'll ask a question that I don't know the answer to, but could say you do have a issue like that, and the owner goes to court, could the judge say, listen, 48 hours, you are going to have a reliable contact in John's office, and he's going to check it out. And if you don't have that, I'm going to fine you $1,000. Could they? I mean, could a judge do that? Could judicial discretion? Could they do that?
I have to open it up to legal for that, but
Yeah.
it would,
I mean,
it would take some
I
more
would think they
research.
could.
Certainly, we're not going to pass something that's not enforceable and legal.
Yeah.
So if they decide, no, we cannot do that, then we won't.
Okay,
But if it's acceptable by the courts, then yes, we
Okay.
will. And I
Yeah.
don't think the price was discussed at 1,000. I think it's much
Sure.
less than that, yeah.
okay, I'm going to move on. Thank you, though. Okay, I guess you've already, my next point, I guess you've already answered that. My question about that is you're not going to do interior, you're not going to be knocking on doors. And I'm assuming that's for single-family homes too in the phase 2 of this.
Correct.
Okay, okay. And then, okay, this, I think you might have answered this, but I did the math on this. For 2 inspectors per year, I figured a fourth of the Tier 1 properties, half of the Tier 2 properties, and all the Tier 3 properties. That would be 7,050 inspections per year with 235 working days per inspector. That amounts to 15 inspections per day for each inspector. I guess I thought that was just really unrealistic with, sick days, staff meetings, paperwork, and all that they could get that much done. But if all they're doing is walking around the outside of a building, I guess maybe they can.
Steve, the only thing that keeps us from the inside of a structure is consent. So if we have reason to knock on the door, we will. Like if I
Right.
see a missing window or a broken window, I can knock on the door, I can leave a notice on the door, I can make contact with the residents and ask for consent to go inside if need be.
Okay, which is the system we have right now.
That is correct.
Today, without the rental registry program.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Okay, the next one I think is mainly for the folks with Topeka tenants, that I understood that your organization was formed because of the very bad treatment you were getting from a small number of landlords. I think if you were to poll your fellow tenants and ask what can Topeka tenants do for you, my thinking is you'd get answers like, I want help with, my windows are so drafty, my kids and I practically freeze during the winter. Every time the tenant upstairs takes a shower, it leaks into my apartment. Or my sink has been dripping for months and the landlord won't fix it. Or the outlets in my living room don't work and I can't get it fixed. And I bet you'd find very, very few that say that the biggest problem is that the city needs to pass the rental registry. So even if this becomes law, all the Tier 3 landlords are going to be assessed a $40 per unit annual fee. What are you going to say if the landlord raises your rent for that? How are you going to explain to your fellow tenants that, because you didn't get anything back from this? My thinking is, and I have this right here, this is the fee or the fine structure for existing property code maintenance right now. This is, I have gone out of my way to comment several times at city council meetings and also at this meeting to say, I think the city has terribly dropped the ball on enforcing what is already on the books. John just told me as we were leaving the meeting on Friday that one of the worst landlords just paid a $30,000 fine. And this has been going on for 9 years. So he's obviously has accepted this as just the cost of doing business. So none of this is going to change any of that. If this rental registry passes, it's not going to change that. I say try to get these enforced. Why don't you join with me? Because I could stay home and watch TV, but I chose to go to the city council meeting and complain about that. So anyway, if anybody's got any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them. Other than that, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
I don't see any. So we've got Alex?
Well, not a question, but I didn't know what order you were going to do, like public comment.
You are
or-
first on the list, so you're next. Come on up.
All right. Hi, my name is Alex Buzicki. I'm with Topeka Tenants. We door knock, we talk to tenants. We are advocates for tenants. My understanding of the city's proposal that was presented today was that it is for tenants, not for landlords. Landlords can benefit from it, though, by showing that they're following code compliance. Wonderful. This is for tenants. One thing that I've noted numerous times tonight is that several people have ideas of the way things should be done. Karen, you have the changing our culture on property maintenance. There have been other people, other advocates in the audience today who have been working on different programs. I trust city staff. You asked city staff to make a plan. They did. I need it brought to city council. I need it out of this committee, and I need it to go to city council so that they can start even looking at it and thinking about it. That is my opinion. It's also the opinion of several tenants I've talked to. As Steve, you mentioned what are tenants going to think when their rent increases due to this. If a good landlord gets charged $20 a year, that is less than $2 a month. That is worth it. Rent is going to go up anyway. We've seen it over and over and over again. Yes, this proposal could have more, but I'm willing to say that this is a good platform to start off on. So we would like it brought to city council, even if it is just for city council to say, city staff, continue working on this. Let's see, also you mentioned that what are tenants saying to us? And we've actually talked to several tenants about the proposal because this has been within the sphere for several months, a landlord registry. We have seen other communities such as Lawrence implement a landlord registry. Different, but similar. We have been talking to tenants, and guess what? Every single tenant has said, yes, we would be in favor of this. That is actually all I wanted to say. I want to thank city staff. I want to thank everyone for having this meeting in general so that we could talk about it. I hope this goes to city council so we can start considering this and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle Twumlow? Uh-oh, she's got a bunch of papers.
Yeah, because this has been going on for years, and I feel like we're having the same conversation every single time. I do appreciate the work that has happened. The 28-page document that was produced several months ago, with analysis and metrics and how they compare to other things, it's, reassuring that the tenants kind of align with this. Daisy's aligned with this. We see that the housing department and the cities has aligned. I would consider more of what was produced by the city, which I love, the draft idea of being more of an outline for us to follow. It is missing a lot of the comprehensive information that's going to provide teeth to a policy, an ordinance, and an actual registry, but it's a good start. We found out last night with this mobile home park registry that it is existing in our community. There is standards already there. While we can make them better, absolutely. The great thing is that Tyler actually has a system and mechanism that will already do the mapping. So Lawrence's registry, as you go on and fill out the form as a landlord, you enter the Tyler portal and you actually click on the map. When you put in the address, the map comes up and it populates on a map for everyone. So it is an integrated system. Because this hypocrisy that I keep hearing about this already exists and this already exists, at the same time about how much money it's costing, it is costing exorbitant amount of manpower and time to pull from all the different systems, to build all the different codes, to do all of that when we can have a landlord fill out a form. if I could show you the multiple number of forms that a tenant has to fill out every time they want to apply to live somewhere. Just so you know, I pulled up one of them alone. Each adult has to fill out this application, sometimes multiple pages. You have to have gross monthly income with 3 times the amount of monthly rent, a credit history check, employment proof, good housekeeping references, property maintenance references from previous landlords. You cannot have 2 evictions in the last 2, or any evictions in the last 2 years, and oftentimes first and last month's rent to apply. A security deposit of $25 per adult. Some of them are upwards of $50 per adult. So with the lack of housing units that we have available, we have families who are applying at 4 and 5 households in a month before they find a place where they can go. Because sometimes there are bad actors who are taking in all these applications for several weeks, piling them in while people are waiting. It's happening often. The argument that, we have these things that already exist, or these bad actors, or will this work, then why have building code restrictions? Why have any sort of rules if we're going to have people who aren't going to follow them? It's not an argument. This alone, this application of 5 pages that someone who has had retaliatory things against them as a renter has to fill out to get any sort of assistance and attestment. So a landlord having to fill out a form once a year about their property, give me a break. It is going to help on time for our staff. It is going to help us combine information in order to utilize our resources better on the places that we need to. And really, my hope is that if we do have, more of an income besides what is coming through just to maintain this program, I think it really should be that we have some sort of fund for landlords to be able to apply for grants that do not have to be paid back to upgrade current housing stock, which, if everybody remembers, that was one of the number 1 things that was suggested in our housing study. And when I spoke to them last week while they were here, we haven't really made too much progress on low to moderate income housing, and that was still a recommendation that will likely be coming out. If we can improve the current housing stock, that is going to be a benefit to our whole community and is a recommendation. So I think landlords who are doing all the things should benefit from this as well. And there's multiple ways to do that, which are included in the 28 pages that we submitted a couple months ago. So I don't want to take a whole lot more time I do agree that moving forward on things is a positive aspect, but we need to make it more with more teeth, because part of this is being able to have the standards in place that allow us to respond to people who have indefinite amounts of money. When you're an heir to a multi-billion-dollar corporation, you don't care how much money you're dropping, right? We need standards in place that will help strengthen that. So thank you for moving forward on talking about it, but I hope that we stop talking about the same things and move forward on action steps. Thank you.
So Danielle, just to clarify, what you're saying is that you'd want to, if something was going to move forward, it needs to get more of the things that got taken out in the cities.
So I
trying
think,
to follow.
So I think the outline is a good start, right? We know this isn't going to be implemented next week. We don't have the structure in place to fully implement anything, and that's why there's phases that should really happen. But if we had an outline, a structure that said, we know that X is going to help combine, like Tyler program is going to combine all the different mechanisms where we're having to pull information, because also the thing that we found out last night as well, besides the fact that, and it was wasn't really to the forefront, but like you can go on to the county's GIS map, but if you were to click on to find out how many mobile home units are owned and how many of them are rented, you can't find that out on the GIS map because you can only find out who owns the land because mobile home units are actually registered through the DMV. And so we have this plethora of things, right, that simply someone requiring to fill out information once a year could help us sort in a much more effective and efficient way. So while I think it would make sense to say these standards that we see here are going to fix a lot of problems, right? We're going to be able to connect LLCs. We have seen multiple cities across Kansas who are doing the resident agent needing to be someone that can be contacted, living within a certain time frame. That's all legally sound, where we can then start connecting those dots. And be able to move forward. But it's going to require us to put different ordinances in place and multiple steps under many of these. So moving forward on, yes, these are the base things that are going to help us develop something that's better. Let's get that moving. And then the next steps being what ordinances, what types of systems need to be in place for us to execute this portion and execute this portion, and narrow it down from all the recommendations that we have. And so this document that, this city has prepared does seem to pull many things from, that 28-page document from what, that similarly to what Daisy had as well, and the tenants have in that time frame also stated they support. So I think there's a base. And I think at that point we need to see what steps need to be implemented to strengthen that base, if that makes sense.
I think so. I mean, the net of all of that is we'd like to have the data and have it as easy to access as possible. And then you've raised the issues about mobile homes that I don't think we've talked about all along in terms of splitting those and so on. So really,
yeah, and
it's in the table, Madam Chair, that we talk about mobile homes and in the discussion. So
yes.
It's in there.
Okay.
It's in there, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so the fact of the matter being, though, is that it's not just the data, but it's having the mechanisms in place to connect the data, right? Being able to have ordinances in place that allow us to say, okay, now we can see this LLC has been, held by, there's 64 that this one organization owns. And as soon as we came across this in a multifamily unit that John helped with a couple years ago that I reached out with, that, the steps and processes had started, right? You could see through this entire complex, but the complex next to him had 5 or 6 spotty people living in it, was completely unsafe. And finding out that, yes, all the things had happened, that, the code had gone through court, all of that, but then he just sold it to, like, his brother's LLC, right? But connecting that then took another 6+ months. But a registry would require, just like a business registry, like we have with the mobile home units that they do in multiple other cities. And when talking to the people from the housing study last week, reinforced that this is a very typical way of doing it, that if you sell, if you trade ownership, any of that, it is required to license within this city that ownership has transferred. Who's the new contact? How do we get a hold of them? That has legal authority to make decisions about that property, right? And then that helps legal out on being able to move forward if they're not complying. So there's not that ball that drops. So I heard you saying switching from red to green, and probably need to think about that a little bit, about how it's switching over and then all of those code things are just automatically gone. But how do we fix that gap? Because it's happening over and over and over again, right? Those code compliance issues still exist. It's just a different owner. And I know John has, done many, many things, but streamlining that process for them to be able to track it, to be able to have the legal teeth in order to force some of these things along. Because if you have a business license, if you are licensed to do business within a city, if you are someone who is not complying with our rules, we can choose not to give you another license to purchase another building. That would be part of our ability, which is what our mobile home unit does. That registry allows us to say, we're not giving you other licenses because you're not complying with code or our standards. So there are ways to enforce that for people of that who are doing that thing. So
Thanks again. Got two more people. Hopefully, they'll talk really fast. We'll still keep Marcus all the way.
You say it's just Marcus. I promise you there's more people in this room than me.
Jonathan Smith, do you still want to speak?
Yeah.
Okay.
Always going to be difficult to follow the ever knowledgeable Danielle, but I'll try to give it a shot.
Thank you.
I think it's important to accurately frame what this proposal is aiming to achieve. There is currently no way beyond deep research or word of mouth for a potential new tenant or a potential tenant to know who they are about to sign a legally and financially substantial contract with. Landlords and property managers will see landlord registry initiatives such as this one and respond by saying that any potential or new tenant can look up and research any landlord and their history of property violations currently, meaning that proposals such as this one wouldn't accomplish or achieve anything. And I think we've heard that comment even here tonight. I couldn't disagree more. A new or potential tenant wouldn't even know to or think to research their potential landlord's property history because unless they've happened to stumble upon a tenants' rights organization, they probably wouldn't think that that is even something they can look up or know or should look up. Yeah, we know that we can look up that information through a nearly hidden and vague link to a portal labeled Public Portal on the city's website, or maybe through Shawnee County's Property Ownership GIS page, or even a Cora request, which I've heard legitimately suggested. But if you are a new, young, or inexperienced tenant, how could you possibly know any of that? As Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense for George W. Bush back in 2002 said, sometimes there are unknown unknowns. Or in other words, there are critical bits of knowledge that people don't know that they don't know. And this current proposal has measures that can bridge that gap. The current proposal mandates multiple layers of information for tenants at times in places where they can't help but receive the information. And landlords can't get out of not providing it. This is something that we, as the Topeka tenants, I'm Jonathan Smith of the Topeka tenants. I should have started with that. I apologize, everybody. An unfunded group entirely composed of unpaid volunteers couldn't possibly hope to achieve. But nevertheless, we do persist in trying to achieve it. It is my opinion and that of the Topeka tenants that this is a great start in addressing the knowledge gap that tenants struggle with between knowing their rights and responsibilities and not knowing what they don't know, as well as adding another tool for the city to enforce their code and property ordinances. Please support this rental registry proposal. A quick critique that I'd like to add, the current proposal as written does not benefit good landlords in almost any way. The city needs to find a better, more sufficient way of benefiting good landlords for voluntary compliance and good standing in order to keep the registry from simply being seen in a negative light, rather than just another standard part of running a business in the city. But it should be noted that as we hear these landlords ask, how is this going to benefit landlords? Why would landlords want this? Objectively, this is largely for tenants because naturally there are exponentially more tenants than landlords. It actually doesn't make much sense for the city to mold policy in favor of such a small population in Topeka. We don't allow electricians or pesticide companies to operate in Kansas or Topeka without a license because of their potential for harm. Landlords should be operating under the same assumptions. Thank you.
Thank you. Braden? Kurt?
Do I reset this?
You only have 20 seconds to be fast.
All right. I'm Braden Kerwick. I'm here with the Topeka tenants tonight, and I would like to also for the push that I'd like to support this moving out of committee into actual council. And while there are like some critiques, I think this is something that is better to move forward than to risk it dying in committee, because as someone in their 20s, I've becoming very discouraged by the amount of people my own age that are saying, forget this, I'm just leaving Topeka, or they're even going as far as saying, I'm just going to leave the whole state, which I fear that's not healthy for any city to be losing people because the everyday person doesn't feel taken care of, doesn't feel that they have any guarantee that, you know, most of the complexes they go to live in may have issues with them. You know, there was someone that we did speak to that a few months ago told us how they moved into the 3rd floor of an apartment complex, and after everything was already signed, they're already moved in, suddenly they realized that their hot water was going in and out. And when they brought it up to maintenance just told them, oh, you live on the 3rd floor, yeah, that's to be expected. And that's the kind of thing that would drive out any average person to just say, forget this, I'm leaving town, if there's no guarantee that this won't happen to me. So now, while there are some critiques, I believe Daisy brought up, you know, the idea of making sure there was more than just the cost of business, such as a potential rent freeze for any property that fell within Tier 3. You know, I think that is a good idea, but again, don't allow that to delay pushing this into council. And, you know, addressing what Steve said about the concerns of if someone is falling into Tier 2 or Tier 3, are we sure they're not just taking this as a cost of business? My takeaway is I feel interested that it almost sounds like a landlord is suggesting something as drastic as if someone falls into Tier 3, the city could even go as far as threaten to seize the property if someone stays in Tier 3 for far too long. And if that's what a landlord's proposal, then I would say, oh shoot, we found something we can agree on. So thank you for everything. Thank you for this proposal. It has moved a lot faster than I expected in the past few months that I've been paid attention to Topeka tenants. But as some have said, this is something that we want to be sure, like past years, it doesn't just die in committee and moves forward to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Comments, questions to leave with us? There are some comment cards or things that you can turn into. We want to make sure that we carry forward. And any lingering issues or questions that you have? Oh. Sorry.
Not really so much a question, more than a comment and an observation. I appreciate everybody coming in and speaking and giving their perspective on things. This is something that I do think that we need to move forward out of committee and not sit on for months. I think it's too important not to go ahead and address.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
On the last few reports to City Council, we mentioned that this item would come to public health and safety this evening, and that we would bring it to council for discussion by July 21st. I think it's very good timing considering the budget implications of this. So in the event that the council wanted to consider this, that would be an option. Thank you.
Yes.
So I make a motion to move it.
I'll second.
This was just to be a public input session, so we hadn't planned on action.
But it's a public health and safety meeting.
Correct. City manager said he was going to do it anyway unless you change your mind, so.
We've had those discussions, and again, that's my intent to bring it to council for consideration this month, in July anyways.
But it has to move out by vote.
Well,
No?
as the chair mentioned, ma'am, it's just a discussion item here. I just really wanted to get feedback and.
Okay,
and-
then
yeah.
I'm cool. As long as it moves when you say it's going to move.
Yes, ma'am.
And as long as we can depend on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Pat DeLapp?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. All the stuff, you don't know who the owners are, we can't find them, things like this. Karen, you know the landlord-tenant law very well. 58, 25, 51. Been law since 1996. On my lease, it requires me to tell them who to contact if there's problems. LLC, things like this. If the property is sold, it requires me to go up there and give them that information. Now, I'm not saying all landlords do that, put that on their lease, but it is required for them to do this. How come this has not been mentioned in this committee, that this is law currently? It should be. I'll send you an well, actually, I probably got enough copies I can pass this out to you now.
Thank you. Now, we've had a number of comments tonight of people bringing up issues that have not been brought up before tonight, in terms of things to be aware of or look into.
What I'd like to see to help the department and to help the city. Number one, I don't like all these death memorials around town. About 100% of them are located on public right-of-way. We don't have to ask any permission to go and remove them. Would you want to have some memorial right there in front of your house? No, I wouldn't. Now, maybe we should have a limit time of a couple of months. If you want to have a memorial, it's a graveyard. Also, to cut back the time period, the SRS, or Division of Children and Family Services, if somebody wants to turn them, a landlord wants to turn them in because they're not treating their carriage right, things like this, they look at the they will ask, well, are you having problems with the tenants? Are they behind in rent? Is there 14, 30 days? If it is, it's hands off for them. They won't do a thing. That's what should do there. A lot of tenants will tear up the unit, and on the way out of the house, call code compliance just to cause problems. That's happened to me several times. It should be hands off if they've not contacted landlord by writing about a 14, 30-day problem with it, or if they're behind in rent and they're already in district court or in that 3-day notice. We can simplify this. Something else I'd like to see, and it's safety and health, although not really like this. I've got a tenant rents a 2-bedroom house for me. As a couple, they're making $70,000 a year. They have difficulty paying $650 a month. Why? Because of the gambling machines we have. Excuse me, they're not gambling machines. They're a game of skills. The legislature tried to ban those things before. You go into the quick shops at night, things like this, they've got 7, 10 machines, and 2/3 of them filled. People just putting their money on that. Is that a smart thing? Or should we help these people and saying, no, we don't want this in Topeka. We ought to get rid of these gambling machines. Thank you.
Thanks. Good points additional points to consider. You're planning to move it regardless?
Yes, ma'am.
We've had a lot of conversation, a lot of comments that we need to look into it more, even if it goes to council. So I don't know hopefully this has been valuable as far as it's gone. People have offered on the tenant side as well as the landlord side to spend more time on trying to work things out. So, Daisy, and then we're going to wrap up here.
Give me 1 second. I am a fan of trees, so I try to do technology. First of all, I wanted to take the opportunity Chair Hiller and the members of the committee, I really want to take the opportunity to say thank you guys for taking a really deep dive into this particular conversation, and the city for working really hard to get this a robust pilot started. There was a couple comments made to here that I just wanted to put on the record, for example. On legislation, I wanted to just say I share the assumption that we won't see an interior inspection mandate within a tenant consent. If you want to take that opportunity to really look at it, look at Senate Bill 416 that was presented this legislation and unfortunately did not go through committee. This is a pilot, but entirely in reality. It adds no interior inspection without consent of the tenants at this particular time, giving them the opportunity to engage what is fair for their own rights and their neighborhoods. Additionally, at this present time, I would also like to say this is not a punishment for good tenants or good landlords, to be more. It's to, I would say, to use you guys as an exemplary efforts, more of, to say this is what a good tenant looks like, or a landlord more of, in Topeka. Versus, and then structurally using the few individuals that are there, that 5-10% and so forth, because as we look at the city as a whole, we're looking at what we can do to ensure the next generation and the current generations are thriving inside this particular area. And then lastly, there was a particular comment on the juncture of, is this additional cost to the city? And I think the city has addressed that very clearly, that this is something that could essentially self-sustain itself if it done appropriately. And then on this scenario, as a whole body, I would like you guys to take the opportunity to think at home. And let's just be clear, the problem that we're addressing is not that this is a new idea. This is about essentially addressing an issue that has been continued for years. In fact, in some conversations, you can say this is an effort to actually showcase the work that this committee has done and to show like, hey, we have all the particular issues or problems that the city has sent or community has said once and all, and we're just trying to highlight it. With that being said, I would like you guys to take the opportunity to also reach back to your particular residents or constituents in your districts and have a detailed conversation with them outside of your personal circle. The easiest way. But again, thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for that invitation. I will share that one of the challenges I put out is that I represent District 1. And I've done tenant landlord for years, and we don't have any data that show that multifamily have more than single family rental issues. Most of the terrible cases that I'm familiar with are single families that have put it off for 3 years, or to say that the multifamily, where we already have some things in place, is more important for us to duplicate than to address single family. We have data. Our staff person is on leave right now, but has run the data on who the owners are that we've had problems with. There's been a lot of conversation about LLCs, but of her master list for 2024, which I was able to lay my hands on more quickly, more than half were not LLCs. And so, various folks have talked about data and being able to make sure that we are striking at where the need is something that I don't say that to put it off, just to make sure that anything that we do is targeted and useful.
I will say, like, speaking with the people who were doing the housing study recap last week and had this conversation specifically about evictions, and that the only way that we can track evictions is by looking at the county court, and they did reiterate how a system of a registry allows that database to be held where we can track that. So personally, I pulled one multifamily unit owner's evictions for a year, and they were 360 on one property in 1 year. And so this person owns 85% of all the multifamily units. And just one property unit that he had over 300 eviction cases. So I think that is something that, again, by being able to compile that information in one way, would let us kind of see that. And we know it's not going to fix everything and that it's going to be multi-tiered. And you're not wrong that there are individuals who are not great landlords either. But so just had that conversation with the data people last week, and so it'll be interesting to see how this housing study report also gives us more.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond to what Daisy was talking about. And I want to apologize in advance because I don't hear very well, but if I understood correctly, you were advocating for inspections without the tenant's consent. Is that correct?
At this present, with
No.
voluntary consent, more of.
It's been introduced, that's what the legislator, our guy said at the meeting when he was there. It's been introduced
Right.
that they can do inspections without consent.
Okay, very good.
Well,
Again,
but what Daisy said, correct me if I'm wrong, Daisy, was don't expect that to happen, don't count on it, because it hasn't.
But the state legislature is working on it, is what he said. The state legislature is trying to get that, they rejected it this session, but
Yeah.
it's going to be reintroduced.
Okay, I just can't tell you, personally, I find that so offensive to say, here, I'm from the government and I'm going to come into your house, whether you like it or not. I'm sorry, I just cannot. There's no way I can agree with that. I don't know how anybody could. I'm sorry, there's just no way. That is so offensive to me. I mean, they're basically going to let a stranger into their house.
And to say there's no penalty, Chardine says there's gonna be a $350,000 penalty for financiers on all the land.
Feel free to come on up here if we got.
Yeah, but anyway, I just,
Talk, but come up and-
I just wanted to say that was one thing that I think our talk lobbyist, I know Karen's very familiar with that, but I think that is legislation that they got passed. And I also know that when other cities across the country have tried to introduce legislation like that, and it's been brought up to the courts, it's always been rejected. It's a warrantless search. So, I mean, I think it's already on the books that you can get an administrative search warrant if there is like a life-threatening issue or something like that. I mean, I could understand that, inspection without the tenant's consent. But anyway, thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that, and just correspondingly, one of the things that we looked at as we processed those kinds of thoughts over the last couple of years was that what's missing is trust, and that, making sure that tenants are informed about their rights and that they have some confidence that they're really going to be protected, that generally, and this is experience of mine personally over years and years, generally somebody will let you in and you are able to get in and see, but you do have to build that trust and be trustworthy as an entity, rather than...
I will comment on that. Some of the issues I think are, I'm going to say, intangible issues. I actually talked with Danielle about this, but there are many, many tenants across this city and across the country who are absolutely scared to death of losing where they live.
That's right.
And they just don't want anybody intruding on their home. And, they may have 5 previous evictions and they can't find another place. So I'm sorry, they don't want anybody intruding on that. That's the thing. I mean, I could sit here and talk about that all night, but there's a lot of reasons for that.
We had some testimony we had tenants that came and testified that they didn't want people coming in the earlier times that this was discussed in this committee too. So thanks for refreshing on that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it is. Yeah, 1 minute?
1 minute. My last closing thoughts.
8:29, you got it.
I love education. I love the engagement. I love that the city's plan included engaging the multiple stakeholders that are interested in this. I would really like to see another meeting set where everyone is informed, maybe make it public and notify people so that we can show up and talk again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, Thank you, city manager. Thanks, committee. Thanks, staff that did so much work in the field and then on this particular time. And thank you, everyone, tenants, landlords, judges, lawyers that we've got in the back who paid attention, and we'll keep working on this, see what we can do. Try and do it right. Thank you. Adjourned.
A second.